The more evidence, the better, I say.
I mean, this is so improbable.
That's a bold statement.
I mean, I think that's a fair point, but I didn't make that argument. He did.
Why is that true? Is that a good question? Maybe it's not.
Drew, you're not supposed to ask good questions like
sorry,
that.
sorry,
Don't ask difficult questions.
Bill, jump in here.
I'm Bill the Christian.
And I'm Drew the Skeptic.
You're listening to The Divide.
Welcome back to The Divide. I'm Drew. I'm here with Bill. And today we are welcoming Ashfaq, who is the former president of an Islamic society in a large city in America. So Ashfaq, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you to be here.
So we appreciate you joining us. And today we are going to put to you the question, what are some reasons that you affirm a positive belief in God or Allah? We're not going to focus on the differences between Islam and Christianity today. We're just going to ask you in general, why is it that you believe?
Bill and Drew, there are two aspects of my conviction and my commitment or my belief, firm belief that God exists, a super being exists, is twofold, like I said. One is the internal, what we call fitra, a natural instinct within every one of us that guides us, called fitra in Islam, that guides us. And my heart, my belief stems from that well before anything else. And the other aspect of my conviction that God exists is logic, is my using my intellect. And the Quran reminds us or emphasizes about us to look around us and look at the creation and be able to come to a conclusion that God exists. And I start with the verse in the Quran, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ.
If you want me to translate for you, I'm happy.
I'd like to hear that.
Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alteration of night to day and day to night, there is a sign for those who ponder. And there are many, many, many verses. Do you not think? Do you not use your mental faculties to know and believe in the creation of God? So believing in one God, believing in Islam is a intellectual thought process that leads you to the Creator. So it is indeed my firm conviction that my heart is the fitra, guides me to the one Creator, and also the logic with this. There are many, many verses I can talk about. I do not know if I should stop here, but
well, you remind me, first of all, Ashfaq, that I teach a great books course in university, and so we read some of the Muslim scholars from before even the time of Thomas Aquinas, so say around 1000 AD, who made very robust arguments, which are still taken seriously in philosophy. Anyway, Drew, do you want to follow up on asking some clarifications?
So I thought it was very interesting. The sort of the second point is something you hear a lot from Christians as well, and there are verses in the Bible that are very similar to the one you quoted from the Quran about how the creation, harkens back to its creator. And I wanted to sort of to press in on that point first, and then I think this other concept is really interesting too. I want to get to the bottom of if it's like a conscience or just an idea of eternity and a creator. But as far as the evidence from creation, are there specific things that you think are particularly pointing to the fact that there must be a creator? Does it get down into the genetic code, or is it more of a just look around and the beauty of a sunset or the skies, or is it a little of both, or is it something else?
Drew and Bill, you know, it's not just the beauty, but it is the planning of the universe. You know, if I quote a scholar, you know, this is a story that he tells. If there was a brand new equipment I just brought home, and the first thing I would look for in that equipment is some kind of user manual to know how to use it, and I'll ask them who do I go to, and then there I'd go to the creator or the manufacturer of that particular device equipment that I bought, and would there is an outside force that has created that, and I would ask. So similarly, when I look at the universe and I ask the question uh, uh, about the Big Bang theory, for instance. So there is a universe, and universe has got these phenomenon that I need to explain to myself. And so I said about Big Bang theory. And Big Bang theory in the recent years, last 300, 400 years or 200 years, has scientists have explained. Now the Quran, 1400 years ago, explained the Big Bang theory in detail. Do they not see that we have that heavens and the earth were one, and we sundered them apart? Okay, so Big Bang theory and is explained. So that manual, the Quran, this is from my perspective. My manual is my Quran, and the Quran gives you the manual that this phenomenon of Big Bang theory, the creation of the universe. You know, scientists have said that there was a 1 over, I don't know, 1 to 10 raised to power 60 second, 60 power difference in the power of that bang. The universe would either have collapsed or would have exploded. So that design, that calculation of the how the Allah, the God, asunder apart the heavens and the earth, and that becomes the what we know in the modern science. Today we also know that the earth is expanding. The stars and the constellations are going in a defined path, and all these things are scientifically. There are scientific evidence in the Quran, direct verses, which says that we have made the earth and we are ever expanding it. Okay, so all these, not just the observation. Observation is definitely part of. You know, every time I go, you know, with this pandemic, I take a ride in the morning and try to find spots where there are birds and animals and the nature. And I say, Subhanallah, it is a natural thing. And when it comes, Subhanallah, glorified is the one who has created this around me. So this gives me a firm belief, not only the observation of the creation, but also the intellectual aspect of what is in my manual that gives me the firm belief in God.
So if I may ask a question as a follow-up there, Ashfaq, when you talk about logic or the Big Bang, the stars expanding out, it sounds to me like the way you see logic as a tool for leading you to belief in God or Allah. Allah, of course, is just the Islamic word for God. And it sounds like the power is really in seeing, or the logical power is in seeing that the Quran provides truths that that science is sort of catching up to. And that's where in other words, the value of the Big Bang is that the Quran advertised it in advance. It's not the way, like when you hear Christian apologists sometimes defend their belief in God, they talk about the Big Bang as evidence for the existence of God, more in a sort of philosophical sense. Like if the Big Bang indicates there's a beginning to the universe, then anything that has come into being has to have had a cause, and therefore that cause must be God, and so on. But they're not necessarily saying the main power of that argument is in the fact that Genesis starts with in the beginning. Now, they may include that, but they'll also have another layer, which will be more of like a scientific type argument. You're an engineer as well. So my question is, do you also think of the Big Bang as having kind of philosophical power or scientific evidence all on its own, or is it only because it's because the Quran has spoken of it that is persuasive?
Bill, that you bring up a good point, and like I said, we were not going to compare Christianity and Islam. I do that enough in your class sometimes.
Yes.
But you see, Islam, unlike what I don't want to speak for you, unlike Christianity, does not say have a blind faith. Okay, so but it says that Islam requires me to use my faculties, and that's the reason. That's the difference is I use my faculty and use those arguments and evidence in the Quran to confirm my belief, and not say, well, there was a cause. Of course, there is a cause. That's why I asked it. There's a cause for that to happen. So you are right. Mine is as a not as an engineer, just a human being. As an engineer, also, I use the logical conclusion of existence of God because of the scientific evidence. That everything is created from water. Every creation is from water. That's in the Quran, and all these modern things that we know from science in the recent past, 1400 years ago. So that becomes my guiding principles.
Okay, so you do also you think of the evidence as being beyond just that the Quran speaks of it, as if I understood you correctly. Is that right? In other words, if the Quran didn't exist, I know it's just a total hypothetical, but if it didn't exist, would you think that, say, the Big Bang and the things in science, the nature and so on, still have a power on their own to bring someone to belief in God, not just only by intuition, but by the logic?
Well, if there was no Quran, as you say, a conclusion that I would have made would come to, looking at all these things, using my intellect, that there is a super being. Somebody created this. Somebody made this happen. There is a calculation that is going on. That is somebody is doing it well beyond my power. So believing in super being, it would be an innate nature in human being.
Well, that's definitely another point that I think you two would both make, is that the preciseness of creation speaks to a creator. There's this doesn't seem like it could have gotten here by accident. Of course, I could throw things back like the facets of evolution that seem to be sort of unintentional. The appendages, and I don't have any great examples off the top of my head. That I know people that are more interested in this than me talk about body parts that seem to have no use, and little facets of evolution that seem to have kind of gone awry. But I don't know if we really want to take it in that direction. But I'm sort of struggling to come up with a question that I wouldn't have already asked Bill on some of our other conversations.
I think, Ashfaq, that your basic argument is actually probably about the same argument I've offered myself to Drew, except of course where you quoted the Quran, I would have quoted, Genesis or the Psalms or something. But basically, the argument is about the same. Do you think that in the intuitive side, that was the first point you gave, the kind of innate nature within us, how do you account for someone like Drew who doesn't seem to have that same intuition, or at least doesn't anymore? Or maybe it's a dormant and it's going to be awoken at some point. He's going to be woke in a theological sense. So what would be your account for, I mean, how do you, not that you can explain everything about Drew, but how do you understand in a sort of broad way why people don't seem to have this intuition?
Well, God has made us all in a different way. Our mind works differently. We don't think alike. If God had wanted, all of us would be alike and believe in God, right? But this is why it is. If there was not people like Drew or other people who have a difference of opinion, I would not have renewed faith in my belief the way it is. So all what I can do is, something you said, that I pray for people like, and I don't want to be evangelical over here, please. But pray that we
by all
all
means, Ashfaq, by all means.
well, so I don't know. It's just that some people have got, we as human beings can see one thing and come to different conclusion, and this is our humanity. So
Well, can we drill down a little bit more on what exactly the term means? Is it like a sense of God, as an idea of a creator that draws you to it, or is it something more than that?
The idea of, and I may be repeating myself because I may not have understood your question, but idea that draws me to believe in the creator is because that is my intuitive, my fitra leads me to that, and got to, you see, if I, as a scientist, as an engineer, have to look at the evidence in order to come to a conclusion in my calculations and well, I'm retired now, so I don't do that much of that, but still the thinking is there. But thinking of a poet from the 17th century, 18th century, who was a philosopher, his conclusion, based on logic, based on his own fitra, has led him to believe, or a farmer, somebody who is not educated or does not know the world, or the Bedouins of at the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or the disciples of Jesus, or the children of Israel, who came to a conclusion that this is a prophet of God, and they use the logic in order to I use the example of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he first delivered the message that he is a prophet. He went on a mountain hill in Mecca, and he started with the logic. He started with reasoning. He said, if I were to tell you that there behind this hill, there's an army ready to attack you, would you believe me? And they said, we believe you because we've never seen you lie. You have always been trustworthy. And then he gave the message that I am the prophet of God. I've been sent by God to give you the message of oneness of God. So logic becomes the cornerstone. Fitra and logic becomes the cornerstone of my belief and conviction in God. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but Fitra or Fitra?
Fitra, F-I-T-H-R-A. In English, that would be Fitra.
So to me, that sounds like sort of the Christian concept of a general dispensation of.
It's called the sensus divinitatis in Christian theology. The sensus divinitatis, the sense of the divine. It's like that verse.
I think there's a verse in Ecclesiastes that says, He has put eternity into the hearts of man. So it's a general, like, every person has this idea of there must be something more, and that can lead you to God, which I think is an interesting concept. Obviously I don't see it that way, but it's fun. It's interesting to me to see the similarities between the arguments that both of you I think would make toward uh, a creator, and how you use logic and you use this concept of God drawing you to Himself to sort of make that picture come together. I guess I would my one question would be, do you see things, and this can be to either of you, but I guess to Ashfaq since he's our guest, but do you see things that make you question that, or make you wonder, well, why did he do, when looking at creation and looking for the evidence and using your logic, are there times when you don't, when it's harder to make the picture come together?
Yeah, and when I see evil, when I see sufferings, when I see people killing each other, and I see, so basically when evil, I don't question, but I wonder what are the reasoning behind it. And evil, and I will say something that has, and I'll back up with some of the scholars who have said it in the past, that there is no such thing as pure evil. One time, there's a verse in the Quran that that everything has been made in this world, in this universe, as decoration, as beauty. And when I see tornadoes, and when I see, Katrina was last time when I uh, really started wondering. So storms, tornadoes, volcanoes, they all have got they've got benefits associated with it. Evil people, when they do bad things, there is a good thing associated with it, because we as people who are good, I pray that I am good and my goodness is accepted by God. Uh, if there was no evil, if there was nobody doing things that were wrong, I would not be able to be able to. Without evil, there is no such thing as right. There's no such thing as good. So for it to be good, there is evil, and therefore those are not pure evil. It strengthens my belief. It strengthens my conviction to fight against that evil.
I think one way that I've heard in Christian circles, and I think you just alluded to it, of understanding this idea is that whereas you might say locally there can be evil, it doesn't mean the system as a whole isn't good. That in a similar way, it might be easier to think of this in terms of free will. That if God wanted to have free will, that allowed some evil into the system, but it created a greater good as a result of it than would otherwise have been possible if you not had free will. So there's sort of the local evil, but it can still allow for a greater good. Now, that doesn't explain every particular local evil and how it could lead to an overall system of goodness, but I think that's sort of what you were alluding to.
Muslim scholars have explained that there is a wisdom that God lets any evil happen. Some of them we can logically understand. Eruption of volcanoes have got benefits that comes out from it. Tornadoes, all these things, but there are some evils we never that God has kept secret, and we will not be able to understand in our.
So Ashfaq, what is like you're saying that evil as a moral problem causes you to wonder, but do any scientific questions like evolution or anything in the progress of science since the scientific revolution, has that caused you in any way to wonder about the existence of God? Because a lot of scientists say that science has led them to atheism,
Well, you see, science leads me to God. Science leads me to now.
Everything about science?
Say it again.
Everything about science? There's nothing in science.
I'm just, there are aspects of science that are negated by science. So science may come up with some arguments today And you may have to give me some examples of those, because I have looked into the medical evolution of things, and things that were, and diet. Science determined this is good for you, and then later on it's not good for you. So I say, where the science stop explaining to me, my faith comes in. I'll give you an example. And when my first son, who's now a physician, was born, he was diagnosed by a specialist in that area with a disease that he said that people don't live any more than more of the children don't live more than 2 years. And he had what they call, he would take protein in his body and it would not break up into, and he didn't have enzymes to break up. So that there was acidic built up in his body. And they, after 3 weeks in the intensive care, we took him home with a very regulated diet. And we were told that some of his, at that time, this was 1980, at time, some of his blood and urine was sent to a lab in San Diego, and to do the test. And when the test came back, they called us back into the hospital, kept him for a week, and gave him protein milk in order to see if he didn't have any reaction. So at that time, Dr. Schwartz, who was the pediatrician expert in that area, he said, I could smell that disease in the kids, in the baby's mouth, ketone smell. And I asked him, I said, you are an expert. And this was 1980, my belief, or my conviction, or my not my belief, but my activism in Islam was not to the point where I am today. And I asked him, I said, you're a doctor. You let us live in hell for 3 months. And now you're telling me he does not have that disease? He said his urine and his blood. He said, and his answer was a profound answer. He was a Jewish physician, and it was a profound answer that still guides me in a lot of my things. He says, I'm only a doctor. Ask God. So, and that is where the science did not explain to me. An expert could not explain to me. I know what happened. The day his urine and blood was taken, I had called my parents, and they had a religious gathering at that time. And I was crying to my mother and asked all the people to pray for him. Okay? So this is just my belief that the prayer and conviction to God was the reason that what was supposed to be a fatal disease was good. He is now has got 4 children. He's the one who's visiting us. He just waved at me, saying that his COVID test came. Okay.
Good. Yeah. So he's a healer and heal all at the same time.
Yes.
I just want to insert a little message to other skeptics and to non-believers of all stripes, that I think one thing I can actually agree with here is that we do need to, our skepticism needs to include science as well, because the things that we believe in science today are the things that haven't been proven wrong yet. So we need to have a humility about. I don't have a lot of patience for atheists who say that science proves that there is no God, or that science has any, that we can take any assertions away. And that you might expect that from a skeptic, but I do think that that's an important point. Obviously, it doesn't lead me to the same conclusion as it does both of you, but I wanted to put that in there as a matter of where we can all agree. Yeah,
that's something we definitely would all agree on, Drew. Ashfaq, I have a final question for you, which is that I've spoken with an imam who was trained in at Al-Azhar, which is a very prestigious university in Egypt, where Ashfaq is from originally. And
no, I'm from Pakistan, by the way.
Oh, that's right. The imam. Yeah. I'm sorry. The imam was from that I spoke with from Egypt, and you're from Pakistan. Yeah. And what he told me was that he did not think logic was a useful tool or a helpful or reliable tool for us to use to come to belief in God. And he told me about a paper that was written in like 800 AD by an Islamic scholar that was denouncing Aristotelian logic, Western logic, and he was part of a translation team that was working on this. And I was just curious if you're familiar with this at all within Islam, or is this is this something that would be well known within Islam among Islamic thinkers, or can you speak to that?
I'm not familiar with it. You've given me an opportunity to maybe talk to some people about that. So I am, like I've always told you, I'm ignorant of that particular aspect. But
Okay.
I just go. I would have to read that in order to understand. But I go by what is the Quran, which compels me to think. This, do you not think? Do you
Yes.
not use your mental faculties? So I have gained conviction because of those profound verses in the Quran.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because there's also a strain of Christianity that holds a similar view, and I think I actually am. I think you and I would be fairly close in the kind of general reasons we would give for why we believe in God, and I think a lot of other theists, monotheists anyway, would relate to what you're saying, and I think probably for Drew, hearing you is a little bit like hearing what he's probably heard from Christian apologists at times. Again, with change out the sacred text we're quoting, and other than that, it's a lot of similarity. Well, Ashfaq, it's been really great to hear from you, and appreciate your honesty and clarity. Great for us to hear from someone from an Islamic perspective.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. And thank you for asking me. I really appreciate that. And maybe someday we can do a podcast on a different topic.
Yeah, I think our second one will be on differentiating Christianity and Islam, and what sort of why do you and I divide at that point, and let Drew kind of drill us on that.
Since this one brought the two together, right? So.
Well, actually, like I said, we value our friendship. We've known Bill for a long time. Lost a little bit connection with him when the Imam started going to your classes. But I would love to be part of podcast. Love to have a discussion. Not as smart as you guys are, not as academic as you guys are, but I just speak from my heart, and this is the way why I am who I am.
Yes, well, it's a very, very powerful answer. So thank you so much again, Ashfaq, for being here. Just a reminder to our listeners that we really enjoy people's contribution to our subreddit, which is The Divide at iPub. Just go to reddit.com and search for The Divide at iPub. And if you have agreements, disagreements, thoughts to extend the conversation, Drew really and I really enjoy that. So visit us there. And I'm Bill the Christian.
And I'm Drew the Skeptic. Thanks for listening.
The Divide is produced by Alan and Ben Hawbrooks and edited by John Workman. Dalton Reed handles IT. Join us for further discussion on this topic at our subreddit, TheDividebyiPUB. To learn more about other episodes and who we are, check out ipub.org/thedivide. See you next time on The Divide.